This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Look, two reasons for making this video. One, I got asked if I would try and sort of dial in something like an Eric Johnson type tone on here. So I've tried that in a couple of ways. What you saw in that introduction there was me integrating this into a preset with an HX Effects, which has my normal sort of delay reverb settings on it and a top secret OD up front. So what I did was just put this in the loop of the HX Effects. I think that worked best for me because in the HX Effects, you've got the ability, if you need to or if you wanted to, jump in and change some things with like EQs and stuff like that, which I think is actually kind of important in terms of shaping tones. And then the other method that I used, which is what I'll show you on screen, was using a Boss Blues driver and for the first time using the loop here. And that is one of the unique things about the Boss IR2. I think only the NUX version of this sort of thing has a loop built in as well. Most of the others don't. And yeah, using the Walrus Audio Meraki in the loop of this. So I bought this when they came out because I thought it sounded really, really good in Leon Todd's video. Better in my view than I've heard most kind of Boss gear sound. Part of the reason for that I thought was that you got the Celestion IRs built in. Now, another thing to kind of get into when building this tone was that I changed the IR on here. So I loaded an IR with a bit of a high cut or like smoothing off of the top end, because I think that can be a real key to getting smooth singing high gain lead tones. And recently, Line 6 just brought out this Pod Express thing, which kind of looks to me to be somewhat of a competitor to the Boss IR2, but I still think that this has a bit more mainstream appeal and a bit more of a sort of maybe everyone should have one of these in their gig bag type vibe to it. So the Pod Express thing has 7 amps in there. I kind of like some of the amp choices in there, and also you can actually control the presence on some of them in the Podgo as well. It's not a Podgo, Pod Express. So yeah, it has a matchless DC30 in there and the Litigator in there, which is like their Dumbly type thing. But you can't load IRs onto it, which I think is a little bit of a fairly crucial thing that this can do, which would kind of set it apart. And the send and the return, where you've got an effects loop. So you can literally use this as a channel switching thing, and that's what I was doing in the intro as well, using the Fender Twin emulation. And then on this button push, essentially what you do is go between a Fender Twin, and in my case I was using the Brown. So I still think that the Boss IR2 probably is the sort of thing that would make a ton of sense as a backup for most folks. It can run on a 9-volt battery. I think the Pod Express can run on 3 AA batteries. It can be used as an audio interface, much like that can as well. Can be powered with a normal 9-volt, but I think the real benefit for me with this thing is that you've got that send and return, as well as the ability to load IRs, which can make all the difference when you don't have too much tweakability in terms of the amp models. As well, I think the interface here is a bit simpler. You don't have the effects built in that the Pod Express would have, although you do have the reverb on here, which is a nice touch. Yeah, it's a little bit different, and that Pod Express thing, I don't know if I'll end up getting one or not, because for me, I feel like with the Line 6 stuff that I've already got, I already have what I think is their best product, the HX Stomp, which covers stuff so well. The things that are coming out more recently, like the HX1 and the Pod Express, for my kind of workflow and for what I do, I'm kind of trying to think of ways that I would use that. And to me, it's more like, well, I can actually see how I use the HX Stomp every day. I'm not having to kind of manufacture an idea for how to use it. And this, I can actually see, you know, that this is meaningfully different to most of the other things that came before it, like the Strymon Iridium, the Walrus Audio, what's that one called? Can't remember. The Universal Audio stuff as well, in that they've actually given you that effects loop built in as well. I think it can go stereo, and you've got a headphone output, can be used as an audio interface. So I still think that the Boss IR2 probably is a pedal that a lot of people could get a lot of use out of. It might be the sort of thing that it makes sense to try, even if you don't use it all the time, because there probably will be a scenario where you need a backup maybe one day. And I actually do really like some of the tones that you can get out of this thing, and takes pedals pretty well. So I'll show you how I was building the tones here with the pedals. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've tried an IR2, liked it, didn't like it. I think this is probably Boss's best product for this sort of thing right now, because it just kind of gets the simplicity of it right, and the tones sound pretty good. Yeah, I think my favourite kind of Boss digital emulation product for sure. So here's kind of where I've ended up here. I've got the Walrus Audio Meraki, because that's like the only delay pedal that I've got here right now. This is an analog style delay. So yeah, ideally you might want either a digital delay or something tapey for Eric Johnson. I think he had a DD3 on his board, or DD2. Anyway, I've ended up here for the lead tone using the modded over here, or brown, sorry, is where I ended up. And I actually loaded in my own IR, which has a bit of a high cut on it. So that's kind of key to what's going on here, because otherwise you basically just end up getting things sounding a little bit too spiky, is what I've found. I've turned the ambience, which I've got onto plate mode, up full. The bass here may be about 10. Then the level, ambience is up full. So this is the top line. Level is up pretty high too. And the gain, I think it's about halfway. Or maybe actually up full. So gain pretty much all the way up, and the treble backed off you see here. I've experimented that between like 0 and 9. Maybe 0 is a bit too dark. And then sort of up to about you hear, yeah, obviously there's that plate going on. So that's kind of on the IR2. If I kick in some delay, I do also have a Boss Blues driver here, because that's somewhat not entirely dissimilar to the Chandler Tube driver. Supposedly, I'd say very loosely, supposed to do somewhat similar things. You see I've got the level at 12 and gain at about 12 as well, and tone rolled off. Consider dropping the bass. The mid, I think you have to have fairly high on this, otherwise. Depending on your guitar, you may even want to back the gain off. So that was kind of what I thought could get me somewhere close enough. Then I was using the twin with basically the gain backed off a bit and level pushed. Really need a chorus for this to... Actually, I've got my mod here, I'm going to turn that up. But something like a compressor might bring that a bit more to life, but that's just kind of the stock twin. You could also, I guess, experiment with like the more crunch stuff, but for me, I felt like I wanted to keep one of the models that I would be more likely to use, and so I decided to use the brown to build this tone off of, so that I could alter that IR without kind of limiting my options on other models that I'd be likely to use. So that's kind of how I would... try to get somewhat close to that. I don't know how close I've actually ended up getting. Probably not as close as I'd like, but it's kind of tricky with without an EQ and that sort of stuff. So if I was really going to go down this route, I think I might actually use an HX Effects for the EQ and stuff like that. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers.